I think Tom Cruise is using his film career to gain superpowers one at a time, so like by 2020 he can walk on water or something. Mission Impossible Rogue Nation is written and directed by Christopher McQuarrie and stars Tom Cruise, Rebecca Ferguson, Sean Harris, and Alec Baldwin. And in Mission Impossible Rogue Nation, Ethan Hunt is on the hunt to find this evil organization called the Syndicate, which is supposedly like an anti-IMF. It's made up of these rogue agents and disavowed agents. And while he's doing this, the IMF itself gets absorbed into the CIA, and the CIA starts trying to hunt down Ethan Hunt because they think he's gone rogue. Now here's a little fact about me. I think every movie is going to fail. And not because I'm pessimistic, but because I'm just really scared for everything forever. So, of course, going in this movie, I was afraid, especially because I like Ghost Protocol so much. But I'm happy to report that I think Mission Impossible Rogue Nation is just as good as Ghost Protocol. It's very suspenseful, the cast is great, and the stunts and the action are as good as ever. Now, Rogue Nation is a slightly darker film than Ghost Protocol is, and not just in terms of tone. Robert Elswit returns to do the cinematography in this movie, and he makes things just a tiny bit grittier and visually more toned down to accommodate the atmosphere, which is good. And Rogue Nation also has less of a focus on setting, which is okay, I think, because if the set pieces in Ghost Protocol were these huge showstoppers, the action scenes in this movie are more subtle in comparison, and they're more about what these characters are trying to do undetected. And in that regard, it's closer to the original spirit of Mission Impossible. And while I do love the set pieces in Ghost Protocol, the action here just feels a lot more practical, which is always great to see. And because Rogue Nation is a more low-key movie than Ghost Protocol, it also has a considerably smaller soundscape, which again is not a bad thing at all. It just means that there's a heavier focus on silence here, which again is good for a movie that's aspiring to be closer to what the original Mission Impossible is like. And Joe Kramer tries his hand at composing music for Mission Impossible this time, and I really do like his score here. This time, instead of like putting Lalo Schifrin's original theme throughout the movie, he plays around with it, so he adds like new melodies into it, and it becomes really interesting to listen to. And there is a lot of suspense here again with the editing by Eddie Hamilton, especially during the opera scene, which in my opinion, it's probably the best scene in the movie. Because what's so good about it is that we're told early on exactly at what point this scene should come to a head. So the entire time we're just in crazy anticipation, we're holding our breaths in complete anxiety, wondering how they're gonna resolve it when the situation seems impossible. And when they do resolve it, it's brilliant. The underwater scene also deserves a mention because of how it's structured in terms of editing. Because while this crazy stuff underwater is happening with Tom Cruise, something else is happening with Simon Pegg's character, Benji, and whatever Tom Cruise does directly affects that scene with Benji. So it's cool how they stretch out the editing there to really kind of make you build up your anticipation. And what's great here is that the pacing does take its time and always keeps a forward momentum going even after the bigger scenes. It doesn't feel like the movie loses steam. Especially after the underwater scene, it's straight to these two chase scenes. But even after that, you still feel like you're tuned into the same overarching story. Now the characters, the way they're written here, they're still not fully emotional beings, I think. But there are lots of little things about them that make their relationships with each other really interesting, which is a good technique for an ensemble piece like this. Like Benji is really shown to be Ethan's friend this time, which gives him a more emotional layer. Brandt still hasn't lost his affinity for stating the obvious, but he's kind of been promoted, so he has like a bigger role as well. And Luther is more protective of Ethan this time. He's kind of like an older brother figure, which again is really understandable because he's been around since the first movie. But the character here who really stands out is Ilsa, played by Rebecca Ferguson, who really does stand out as someone who keeps shifting sides, but she doesn't just do it because it's convenient for her. Like, they really keep her motives under wraps for most of the movie, so you're really not sure what side she belongs on, but you believe it when she switches sides. You can tell she still has a moral center, which makes her completely unpredictable because you don't really know where her loyalties lie, if she actually cares about Ethan. And it's important to note that this movie is still funny. They still retained a lot of the humor, especially from Simon Pegg's character, and Simon Pegg has a bigger role in this movie as well. Tom Cruise is once again kind of limited to being like the determined leader here, but you can really tell that he does commit to this role, even if he doesn't have a lot of like drama to sift through. Like, you can see it in his face that he's just so in the zone when he's playing Ethan Hunt. And it's a credit to Rebecca Ferguson that she does keep us guessing about Ilsa until the very end. And she really sells the fact that she is an action star. She doesn't just hold a gun and pretend to shoot. Like, she is doing, it looks like she's doing her own stunts too. And I actually really like Sean Harris here as the villain, because just like Philip Seymour Hoffman in Mission Impossible 3, he's not intimidating by his physicality, but by how it seems like he could snap at any moment. So, you know, he does also kind of get under your skin. He's kind of a creepy guy. Alec Baldwin is here, and he's great at playing angry Alec Baldwin. Jeremy Renner and Ving Rhames are good as always, and especially Simon Pegg, who is really still underrated as a dramatic actor. I don't know why he's not being given more dramatic roles, because he really is very, very good. They all do good work, and they all have really fantastic, chummy chemistry with each other. And I think Christopher McQuarrie is a good choice for this kind of movie, because he does bring the action down a notch in terms of scale, but he increases the tension in a lot of parts as well. And it's true what they say that this Mission Impossible feels a lot like a greatest hits of the series so far, because McQuarrie smartly combines the fun tone of Ghost Protocol with the intensity of the action in 3 and the real espionage stuff of 1. And I'm sure there's a bit of Mission Impossible 2 in there just to be nice. I do just have a couple of issues with Rogue Nation though. For one, McQuarrie's hand-to-hand action can get a bit hard to follow and a bit too shaky at times. Like, he uses a lot of handheld cameras again, and I think it's unnecessary because I can see that there is choreography going on, and his other action scenes are really well done. It's just these hand-to-hand ones are a bit hard to follow. And the whole idea of the Syndicate is very loosely defined. You don't really feel them as this looming presence. They don't really feel like an anti-IMF because, you know, they can never seem to hit Tom Cruise anyway. And also some of the plot can get a bit confusing with all this information being thrown in there, but it's just a small complaint. Because in the end, I still think Mission Impossible Rogue Nation is a great movie. I still think Ghost Protocol is better just by a little bit, but I think this will still appeal to big fans of the first Mission Impossible movie if you like that kind of hardcore spy stuff. Alright, so those are my thoughts on Mission Impossible Rogue Nation. Have you guys seen it? What do you think about it? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Whatever you thought. Whether you agree with me or not, please leave me a comment. Let's have a conversation.